All right, ready to dive into some digital and video art.
Let's do it.
We're taking a deep dive into Premiere Season 05 of the On-Screen Festival.
It's really not your typical film festival.
No, not at all.
This one's global, it's all streaming, and it really pushes the boundaries.
Yeah, it makes you think about what art can be in this whole post-digital reality thing.
Absolutely.
Especially with this year's theme.
Post-digital future, exploring the boundaries of perception.
Yeah, post-digital future.
Yeah.
Exploring the boundaries of perception. It sounds like a mouthful, but it's pretty fascinating when you think about it.
It is, and the artists featured in this festival are really grappling with some big questions.
So for anyone who's new to this whole thing, can you give us a quick rundown of what On-Screen is all about?
Sure. On-Screen is a digital and video art festival, and it's all streamed online, so anyone with an internet connection can experience it.
That's pretty cool. It makes it accessible to everyone.
Exactly. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can be part of this global art experience.
And it's all about how technology and creativity kind of intertwine.
Right, and how that's changing the way we experience art and even the world around us.
Which brings us back to this year's theme, post-digital future. Exploring the boundaries of perception.
It really makes you think about how much our devices, the algorithms, the whole digital world shapes what we see and how we see it.
That's a pretty big concept to wrap your head around.
It is, and these artists are tackling it head on.
So let's talk about some of these artists and their work.
All right, let's dive in.
One that caught my eye was Aleksei Martyniuk and his piece, Who Framed the White Cube?
Oh yeah, Martyniuk's work is really interesting. He actually transforms a former cinema into an art space.
So he's repurposing a physical space for digital art.
Exactly. But it's not just about the space, it's about how he uses it. He has multiple screens scattered throughout the audience, and the images projected on them blend with the real architecture of the cinema.
Wow, so the lines between reality and the projected images get blurred.
Completely. It creates this immersive experience where you're not just watching the art, you're kind of inside it.
That sounds incredible.
It really challenges our traditional way of experiencing art.
It's like the art is breaking free from the frame and interacting with the viewer in a whole new way.
Exactly.
And then there's Michael A. Ricciardi, who takes a very different approach with quantum butterfly effect too.
Yeah, Ricciardi's work is all about blending human creativity with AI.
It's a hybrid work, right?
It is. He's not just using AI as a tool, he's collaborating with it.
So the AI is like a creative partner.
In a way, yes. And it raises all sorts of questions about the future of art and the role of technology in the creative process.
Like, what does it even mean to be an artist when AI is involved?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of questions Ricciardi's work is prompting us to ask.
And then we have Stochastic Reverie, who takes a completely different route with growing pains.
This one's a really interesting auditory experience. Stochastic Reverie takes sounds from 80s Mexican television.
So it's like a sonic time capsule.
Sort of, but it's not just about nostalgia. They manipulate these sounds, creating these unique compositions that are both familiar and completely new.
So they're using technology to reimagine the past.
Exactly. It's a great example of how technology can bridge the gap between different eras and create something totally unique.
And then there's S. Chandrasekaran and Evanescent Memories. This one uses AI-generated visuals, right?
It does. Chandrasekaran uses AI to capture those fleeting moments, the ones that usually slip away unnoticed.
It's like he's trying to freeze time.
In a way, yes, it's a really poetic exploration of time and memory in the digital age.
I like that. It seems like so much of this festival is about blurring boundaries.
It is. Between the real and the digital, between the past and the present, between the artist and the technology.
Okay, let's talk about a few more artists before we move on.
Sounds good.
Masafumi Oda's Digital Hymn to Itzik sounds particularly intriguing.
Oda composed this piece as a hymn for imaginary digital beings.
That's a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
It's like he's imagining a future where digital consciousness exists alongside our own.
Exactly. It makes you question what it means to be human in an age where technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated.
What does it mean to be alive, to have consciousness?
Those are big questions, and Oda's work is prompting us to think about them in new ways.
Then there's Valentin Sisman and Screen Song. This one uses visuals from a machine's eye.
That's right. It's a musical system built on the way a machine sees and interprets the world.
So it's like we're hearing the world through the eyes of technology.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if machines perceive the world differently than we do.
It's a bit unsettling to think about, but also fascinating.
It is. It challenges us to consider the perspective of the technology we create and how it might be shaping our own understanding of reality.
Next up, Jangwin Lim's relationship conflict and relationship meet. These pieces take a slightly different approach, focusing on human relationships.
Lim's work reminds us that even in this increasingly digital world, human emotions and connections are still at the core of our experience.
It's a good reminder that technology can be a tool for exploring those deeper human themes.
Absolutely. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we use it to understand ourselves and the world around us.
Now, for something completely different, Kenji Kojima's Sunday Afternoon sounds pretty complex.
It is, technically speaking. Kojima uses a cryptographic technique to encrypt color information in his visuals.
So it's like he's hiding information within the art itself.
In a way, yes. And what's interesting is that he's drawing a parallel between this encryption process and the way our brains decode information from the world around us.
So he's using technology to explore the very nature of perception.
Exactly. It's a really thought-provoking piece that makes you question how we make sense of the world.
And then we have Isabel Pérez del Pulgar's Identificación Algorítmica Errónea. This one seems to be a commentary on the role of algorithms in our lives.
It is. It challenges us to think critically about how algorithms shape our online experiences, how they can be biased, and how they can even manipulate us.
That's a really important message, especially in today's world.
It is. We need to be more aware of how these systems work and how they influence our perceptions.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have, and we've only scratched the surface. There are so many other incredible artists and thought-provoking pieces in this festival.
It's pretty amazing to see the range of creativity and innovation on display here.
It is, and it really speaks to the power of digital and video art to push the boundaries of what's possible.
It's like we're getting a glimpse into the future of art.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think we need to dive a little deeper into some of these individual pieces.
Sounds like a plan.
Let's start with who framed the white cube. I'm really curious to unpack how Martyniuk uses that physical space to create such an immersive digital experience.
Yeah, and I'm eager to hear more about Ricciardi's collaboration with AI. I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Definitely. And let's not forget about Stochastic Reverie and the unique soundscapes they create.
Oh, and Chandrasekharan's exploration of time and memory. That one really stuck with me.
Me too. There's so much to explore here.
Well, we've got plenty of time. Let's take a closer look at some of these pieces and see what other insights we can uncover.
All right, let's dive in. Okay, so picking up where we left off, let's talk about Masafumi Oda's Digital Hymn 2.
Yeah, the one composed for these imaginary digital beings.
Exactly. It really pushes us to think about what defines life and consciousness, especially in a world that's becoming so digital.
It does make you wonder, if music, with its ability to convey emotions, could be a way to connect with those digital beings, if they ever do exist.
That's a really interesting thought. Like, even if these beings are completely different from us, maybe we could still find common ground through emotions.
Maybe music is that universal language.
It could be. Then we have Valentin Sisman's Screen Song.
Right, which uses visuals from a machine's eye.
Yeah, it's like a musical system, but it's built on how a machine sees and interprets the world.
So we're essentially experiencing the world through the senses of a machine.
In a way, yes. And it makes you wonder, do machines even see the world the same way we do? Or do they pick up on things we miss?
Do they see things we don't?
That's the question, isn't it? It's a little unsettling, but also pretty fascinating.
It definitely makes you think.
It does. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about Jangwin Lim and his pieces Relationship Conflict and Relationship Meet.
Yeah, these ones focus on human relationships, which is a little different from the other pieces we've been discussing.
It is, but it's a good reminder that even in this digital age, it's human connection and emotions that really matter.
Right, all the technology in the world can't replace that.
Exactly. Okay, now for something that's a bit more technically complex, Kenji Kojima's A Sunday Afternoon.
This is the one that uses a cryptographic technique to encrypt color information.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-bending stuff. But what's really interesting is that Kojima is drawing a parallel between that encryption process and how our brains decode the world around us.
So he's using technology to explore perception itself.
Exactly. How do we take in information and make sense of it? It's like he's using art to explore the workings of the brain.
It really makes you appreciate how complex our brains are.
It does. Now let's talk about Isabel Pérez del Pulgar and Identificación Algorítmica Errónea.
This one deals with algorithms, right? something we're all dealing with these days.
It does, and it's a really important piece because it challenges us to think about how algorithms shape our experiences online, how they can be biased, how they can even manipulate us.
It's like we need to be more aware of what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak.
We do, because algorithms have a huge impact on our lives, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to something a little lighter. What about Sergei Kismikov's Stool Quartet?
Oh, this one's great. It's literally a piece about a spinning chair.
A spinning chair.
Yep. But Kismatov manages to turn it into this captivating audiovisual experience. It's like he's showing us the beauty in everyday objects.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest things can be the most inspiring.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about Edmar Soria and distant motility.
This is the one that explores the idea of machines experiencing the divine, right?
Yeah. It's pretty out there conceptually, but it raises some really interesting questions about consciousness and whether technology could ever transcend its material limitations.
It's almost like a philosophical exploration disguised as a digital art piece.
I like that because it really is pushing the boundaries of what we consider art and what we consider possible.
Definitely. What's next?
Modility and seismic serenity. This one's visually stunning. Modility envisions the digital world as an extension of nature, using digital tools to mimic things like seismic activity.
So it's like he's blending the digital and the natural world.
Exactly. And it makes you think about the relationship between technology and nature. Are they in conflict or can they coexist?
Can they even complement each other?
All right. Okay, last but not least, design fams dance with frequency.
This one seems a bit different from the others. It's connecting Hegel's philosophy with digital art.
It is, and it's a great example of how artists are drawing inspiration from all sorts of places, including philosophy and intellectual history.
So it's like a bridge between the past and the present.
Exactly. Design Fam is showing us that the digital realm isn't separate from our broader cultural heritage. It's all connected.
That's a good point. It's all part of the same story, in a way. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have, and it's clear that the post-digital future is a really complex and multifaceted thing. There's so much to explore and unpack.
And I think On Screen is doing a fantastic job of showcasing that complexity.
I agree. It's a really thought-provoking festival.
So before we move on, what are some of the key takeaways for you? What's resonating with you the most?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that the lines between art and technology are becoming increasingly blurred.
And the lines between the real and the digital, too.
Exactly. And I think that's a really exciting thing. It opens up so many possibilities for creative expression and for how we experience the world. But it also raises some important questions about the role of technology in our lives.
Right, and how we can use it in a way that's beneficial and doesn't lead us down a path we don't want to go.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and delve a bit deeper into one of the topics that's been lurking in the background of our conversation: algorithms.
Sounds good. I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, so to speak.
All right, so we've journeyed through this incredible landscape of digital and video art at the On Screen Festival.
We've seen how artists are using these tools, these digital tools, to really push the boundaries, like questioning how we perceive things, even exploring consciousness.
And even reimagining our relationship with nature, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
But before we wrap things up, I think we need to circle back to something that's been kind of underlying our whole conversation.
Algorithms, right?
Yes, exactly. We touched on it a bit with Isabel Perez de Pulgar's piece.
Right.
But it feels like something that deserves its own deep dive, you know?
I agree. Algorithms are so deeply embedded in everything we do online.
It's easy to forget they're even there.
It really is. It's almost like we're swimming in the sea of algorithms.
And we don't even realize how they're affecting our experience.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And just like when you're swimming in the ocean, you need to be aware of the currents and tides.
We need to be aware of how algorithms are working.
Exactly.
So are we talking about, like, developing an algorithmic literacy?
Yes, exactly. Understanding how they're designed, the data they use, the potential biases.
Because I think a lot of people feel like algorithms are these, like, mysterious black boxes.
Oh, for sure. But they're not magic. They're created by people, they use logic, and they're based on data.
Right. It's not about becoming a coding expert.
No, not at all.
It's about understanding the basics of how they function. So where do we even begin with that? How do we start developing that kind of awareness?
Well, the first step is just paying attention.
Yeah, okay.
Notice how they're shaping your experience online. Look at your social media, your search results, the recommendations you get.
Okay, so be more mindful.
Exactly. And start asking yourself, why am I seeing this? what data is being used to make these decisions.
So it's almost like becoming an algorithm detective.
Yes, you're looking for clues, trying to figure out the hidden mechanisms.
Right, so it's not just about understanding how they work. It's about developing that critical eye.
Absolutely. Because we can't just take the results of an algorithm as objective truth.
Right.
We have to be aware of the potential for manipulation, and the ways algorithms can reinforce existing inequalities.
Especially when it comes to news and information.
Oh, absolutely. Algorithms play such a huge role in shaping what news we see and how it's presented to us.
So how do we break out of those filter bubbles, those echo chambers?
One way is to actively seek out different perspectives. Don't just rely on algorithms to curate your news feed. Go find sources that challenge your assumptions, broaden your worldview.
So it's about taking control, taking the wheel back from the algorithm.
Exactly. Algorithmic literacy is about empowerment. It's recognizing we have choices in how we interact with these systems. We can take steps to mitigate the potential negative effects.
This has been, wow, really eye-opening. It makes you realize just how much algorithms are woven into our lives.
They really are.
And how important it is to be aware of that.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners, what's one concrete step they can take today to start developing that algorithmic literacy?
I'd say cultivate curiosity.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, to dig a little deeper, to challenge the information you're seeing online. The more you understand how these algorithms work, the more empowered you'll be.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the On-Screen Festival and for this deeper exploration of algorithms.
It's been my pleasure.
And for our listeners, remember to check out the On-Screen Festival at goes-art.com. It's an experience you won't want to miss.
It is.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep challenging the digital world around you.
And happy exploring.